We start off with a story out of the Maldives, David. You may have seen this one. This was a gentleman who was riding along, a minister in the Maldivian government, Ali Soli, who was riding along on a motorbike in the capital of the Maldives, Male, and another gentleman came up to him with a sharp instrument and began to stab him. Where do you think he began to stab him, David?
Is in the neck.
It's uncanny. I'm in awe. Now, this gentleman in particular, before he began to stab Ali Soli in the neck, he was seen reciting a passage from a particular book. What book do you think he was reciting from, David?
I'm gonna go with Quran here.
Really, if this were Jeopardy, you would be in the tens of thousands by now.
I'd be that Ken Jennings dude.
Indeed. Okay, we go to
Indeed.
Germany. In Germany, we have Michael Stürzenberger, who is the head of Pax Europa, and he was speaking in Gladbeck in a rally of Pax Europa, and was approached by some young Muslims who knocked him to the ground, hit him in the head. The rally was canceled. This is also similar to something that happened in Russia, where a Muslim was detained for preparing an act of terrorism against politicians in India because they insulted Muhammad. In Pakistan, a mob of Muslims chased, nearly lynched to death if they hadn't been prevented by police, a Hindu who was a sanitary worker. They found burnt pages of the Quran on the floor. In Somalia, there was a major attack from Al-Shabaab, an Al-Qaeda affiliated group, on a hotel, the Hyatt Hotel in Mogadishu. And 20 people were killed, 40 people were injured. The president of Somalia has declared all-out war against Al-Shabaab. And it kind of reminds me of... Yeah, it reminds me of when the various presidents of Nigeria, Goodluck Jonathan and then Muhammadu Buhari, have both said, we're going to go to war against this Boko Haram and we're going to stamp them out. They're going to be gone. And it never happens. It's just rhetoric that we always see dragged out after the Jihad attacks. But
And the fact that even politicians who come along every once in a while and actually want to deal with the problem can't actually deal with the problem, and this flies in the face of this, the myth that this is just a tiny minority of extremists. If this were a tiny minority of extremists, you'd be able to, entire nations would be able to deal with this problem, and yet it keeps springing up, right? So it's Nigeria, it's Somalia, it's Pakistan, over and over and over again. People are helpless to do anything about the jihadis killing in their midst. And you'd think if it was really a tiny minority, if this was just a tiny minority of extremists, then no problem, take care of them. And then great, the problem's gone, and now we can all live in, with peace and democracy as Islam really teaches. Instead, no matter how many governments or how much effort they put into dealing with the terrorist groups just keep growing and recruiting more members. And so where are all these members coming from?
What on earth would make people think, oh, I should join a jihad group? This is the question that's never answered by the mainstream. What is it that makes people think this is the right thing to do? Could it be that they're reading the Quran and seeing that it's calling them to wage war against unbelievers, and that these people are waging war against unbelievers?
No, and really, if this had nothing to do with Islam, then it shouldn't even be the governments that have to deal with this problem. It should be the educated Muslim clerics the sheikhs, the imams, educating their people in the mosques and in the madrasas and showing them, hey, you see, this has nothing to do with Islam. And yet it's the mosques and the madrasas that are putting out all of these terrorists who are going and joining Al-Shabaab and Boko Haram and all these other groups. And I mean, again, at what point do we recognize that there's a problem?
There were a couple of imams who were just arrested the last few days in India, and it turns out they were recruiting for Al-Qaeda.
Shocker.
How could imams who read the entire Book of Peace, and they know how we cherry pick from it and take it out of context, how could they possibly come to the conclusion that Al-Qaeda was the way to go? It's baffling.
Yeah, don't they realize all you have to do is go to Surah 5, verse 32 of the Quran, chop off the beginning of the verse, which says that this is, for the Jews, quote part of the verse that says, if anyone kills a man, it's as if he's killed all mankind. Ignore the very next verse, which commands Muslims to crucify and dismember and slaughter people in the name of Allah. Ignore the commentaries, which say that, that making war against Muhammad includes even things like criticism and disbelief, and therefore these penalties of slaughtering people apply to people simply for criticism or disbelief. Ignore all of that and just go with the dismembered version of Surah 5, verse 32. Ignore that this is from the Talmud. Ignore all of that stuff. And then you've got this religion of peace. I mean, that's how we got the idea that Islam's a religion of peace here in the West. Why aren't they doing it over there?
So in Nigeria, we had a killing of over 20 Christians. The Muslim jihadis opened fire in a church, and they shot their way actually onto the site of St. Agnes Catholic Church. They abducted a catechist, Gideon Tsehemba, Tsehemba. They got into the church, shooting indiscriminately. More than 20 Christians were killed. In France, a Muslim started to fire random shots. And of course people were alarmed because there's this guy with a shotgun firing out on the street. People called the police. He began to fire at the police. Meanwhile, very interesting statement coming out of an Islamic scholar in the West Bank, in Judea and Samaria. And his name is Muhammad Afif Shadid. And Muhammad Afif Shadid said this. I had to transcribe this whole thing, so I'm going to read it out. If I had to get all this down, then you all can get to hear it. Ladies and gentlemen, here is Muhammad Afif Shadid. Our goal is to spread the religion of Allah throughout the land. The verses from the Quranic chapters The Repentance, that's chapter 9, and The Spoils of War, that's chapter 8, completely abrogated the notion of defensive jihad. We constitute an offensive army. Fight those who do not believe in Allah and the last day and do not comply with what Allah and His Messenger have forgiven. That's 929. Fight them until there is no more strife and religion will be entirely for Allah. That's 839. Kill the polytheists wherever you find them. That's 9.5. We did not set out from Medina to fight the Persian and Byzantine because they occupied and plundered our land, but to usher them into the abode of Islam and nothing else, and to spread the religion of Allah. In the days of the rightly guided caliphs, the Islamic Caliphate, the abode of Islam spanned 6 million square kilometers. Under the Umayyad state, it spanned 11 million square kilometers. In the days of the Abbasid state, it spanned 33 million square kilometers. Then under the Ottoman Caliphate, it spanned 10 million square kilometers. The Second Caliphate, which will rise soon in our own days, inshallah, will reach 510 million square kilometers, which covers the entire globe. Palestine and the Holy Land will only be liberated by those who brandish their swords and their weapons in order to bring it back into the abode of Islam, and obviously to kill all the Jews in it. In India, a Muslim father, his name is Shahid Qureshi. That's 2 Qureshis tonight, David. It's just a bad thing. But in any case, Shahid Qureshi had a daughter, Shayna, and he wanted her to get married and had fixed her marriage, arranged her marriage. But Shayna did not like the individual that she was supposed to marry, and so Shahid Qureshi actually beheaded her. Terrible story out of Pakistan. We have a girl who, what did she do? Let's see, I'm not even sure what she did. Oh, it's another forced marriage story, and she refused. And so her father took out the phone and started to video as he made her lick shoes. One last in Nigeria, a 16-year-old Christian girl was kidnapped, forced to convert to Islam. A lot of people say, well, these kinds of stories, they have nothing to do with Islam because chapter 2, verse 256 of the Quran says there is no compulsion in religion. But she wasn't really forced. She could have chosen to be killed. So she was perfectly free to convert to Islam. And of course you can find all this on jihadwatch.org, the source of all these news stories, with the sources if you are skeptical about anything that we're saying.
Dear Muslim friends, if your Muslim leaders cannot properly represent Allah, the Quran and Muhammad, do you expect them to properly represent the Bible? If they lie to you about the Quran and the Bible, what else are they lying to you about? If you choose the God of the Jews and Christians, you must read the scriptures of the Jews and Christians to know their God. If you like what we do, please support this channel by subscribing and pressing the bell to be notified when a new episode is uploaded. Also, don't forget to like and share.